All right, everybody. Thank y'all for your patience while we got this thing going. Listen, welcome to Street Therapy KC. It's your man, Chris Jackson, sitting in the air chair. Today is October the 4th, about less than 10 days from my birthday. Yay! So without further ado, man, we're gonna talk about this subject today. Talking about mental health, and I think we're gonna hit that, man. Really try to hit that for the duration of 2022, and really, just continue in that vein. But I brought some special guests with me in studio and on online. So we're gonna have this conversation, and I'll let them introduce themselves real quick. And we're gonna go ahead and jump into it from my left to right, and then to the internet.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? I am J.M. Banks. I'm the culture and identity reporter for the Kansas City Star. So, pretty much, I cover underrepresented populations here in the Kansas City area, mainly the black community doing amazing things in the creative sector. So, everything ranging from businesses, nonprofits, artists, music, that's all under my umbrella. I also write obituary pieces for a feature we do Sunday called Black Lives Remember, going over the lives of recently deceased members of our community. And I also sit on the board of directors for a nonprofit called the Village KC.
Nice, nice. And some right.
All right. I am Daryl Baker, and I am here today. Born and raised Kansas City. I'm glad that Chris has me on his show today. I volunteer whenever I can and try to stay active inside of Kansas City.
Awesome. Yes, sir. Was this mic on? Did you hear him?
Mic check, mic check.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear. All right, and we'll go down to Khadijah. Go to Khadijah next, please.
Hey, I am Khadija Hardaway. I am the Vice President of Justice for Wyandotte. I am the Chair of the Social Justice Committee at Grand Chapel AME and KCK, and I am a native of Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised.
All right, thank you. Without further ado, we go to Sean.
All right, I'm Sean Crawford. I am the co-owner of Melanated Investments and Melanated University, where we focus on real estate and life skills for our community.
Man, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So today, we're gonna just jump in, talk about. I want to talk about trauma and what trauma looks like. Trauma covers a lot of different areas. Trauma can come from, outside forces. Trauma can come from inside forces. Some trauma can be self-inflicted. I've gone through some trauma in my life, and still work through it. And I think trauma is one of those things that hits you and it kind of sticks with you. We were talking a little bit earlier that oftentimes you got those triggers, and sometimes when you think you're over something and something punch in that spot, that sore spot, man, like yeah, I don't think I'm over that one. But I've gone through some things, man, and dealt with trauma in my own right, and worked through them, and trying to help other people work through their traumas, and how it affects them, and really learning. My goal is to learn from people, what happened, and how did you make it through, and are you still making it through, and how you doing through the process? How about anybody else to jump in?
Yeah, like we was talking about earlier, especially in the black community, so many people just have an issue with, number one, we need to normalize seeking out help and actually seeing a therapist and talking out, because a lot of people you shouldn't be talking to about your problems. You got to really watch who you allow into your internal peace.
Indeed.
But we really need to normalize going out and seeking that kind of professional help, because I didn't think I had things I needed to deal with from my upbringing. But in retrospect, just being a quiet, smaller, light-skinned guy from the hood, I do have certain defensive mechanisms that somebody say something, I think they trying to test me or push my buttons.
Yeah.
Then I realize I'm at work and be like, oh, that's not what's going on here.
Sure.
But I'm still sensitive because that wound hadn't been properly tended to, so it didn't heal properly. So now we have these little triggers that pop up and flare up. We don't know how to deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
We never dealt with them in the first place.
Somebody picked your scab.
Yeah, exactly. Poke.
They picked your scab, man. How about yourself, bro?
Yes.
I'm going to jump right in because, we're on a Zoom call. I just want to say that trauma is pretty much layered and it has a lot of symptoms to it. And I think the symptoms are really stemming from like lack of knowledge, like education. A lot of people don't know what direction to move in. And I dare people to search out what their issue is and to identify what kind of psychologist they need in order to help them along the way. What we deal with a lot of times is people who've been traumatized by sexual assault, police brutality. And so in that direction, we often are looking for a clinical psychologist that is licensed and often can stand the trial. Same thing with kids who have been sexually assaulted. I mean, if we know what directions to take and arm ourselves, it releases a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, fear, because fear is based on not knowing what to do. And so I always like to empower people with education, how to seek out a therapist first, and then how to go about making sure you have the right therapist. And in a lot of these cases, it's layered with legality, making sure that you have all the knowledge you need. I mean, we're talking about people who look at autopsies and never have done this before because of their loved one being murdered and having to go through just the repeated trauma. So I just try my best to educate people on what type of therapist they need and make sure that they understand what their issues are and don't try to blend it with other people's issues. There's a lot going on in Kansas City when it comes to trauma and crime and as it relates to one another and how people are associated and continue the cycle of the trauma. So I just wanted to put my little 2 cents in there. I know that's a lot, but
no, that made perfect sense. That made perfect sense. Sean, how you feel, bro?
I feel like it's you just got to realize that it's okay to ask questions. One, like you said, there's a lot of different types of trauma and a lot of different stages of trauma. I mean, you have acute trauma, which is it happens one time. So we may have that trauma from one incident, something that happened to us once, and we think eventually that's something that's going to fade away. But it just doesn't happen like that. So we have to, be able to ask questions and actually, like I said, get over that stigma of we are strong Black people and we don't ask for help and we don't need to talk to no doctors. We don't need to talk to any therapists. We just push through.
Yeah. A lot of times, man, there's fear there. You talked about strong Black men. When there's fear there. Oftentimes is, when we look, at the pharmaceuticals and the doctors, historically, oftentimes they didn't really have our best interest in mind.
Sure.
So, even in banking sometimes, man. But we look at that and it's hard for us to reach out. I think that's why it's so important to reach out to seek help. But it's hard because who do you trust? And Khadijah, you said the same thing. To find the perfect counselor or to find a counselor that works for you, that's not easy.
Well, I would first tell people to identify someone who looks like you and who is culturally developed like you. I mean, because, we come from different backgrounds, our culture is different. The things that we feel like are codes and not codes are different, in society. We live with it every day. So I tell people first, find someone who look like you. And if you can't find someone who look like you, at least find someone who can understand the nature of what it is you're suffering from in all aspects, not just from your brain aspect, but from the environment you have to sit in every day. See, a lot of times, you go to therapy, but you still have to conquer over the environment you're in. And that just is a repeated cycle. So you just need to find someone who is adaptable to you and your issues and know what your daily life is and that you're going through. And that's, again, that starts with educating yourself on one, what is your issues and identifying that strongly. And sometimes you need to go to the doctor for that. And other times you can read upon and see, case studies that are similar to yours and know what direction to move in. But it's important that people educate themselves and know what questions to ask. And not only just what questions to ask, but I tell a lot of people, a lot of times you're paying for these services. These people are employed by you. So when you don't feel comfortable and you want something changed, you should speak up. I don't care who it is, lawyer, your psychologist, whoever, speak up respectfully and get what you need, because oftentimes we don't feel like we can say what is exactly wrong with us, even if sitting in a doctor's office, because we know how they're going to treat us, but we have to demand that kind of respect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And and I guess it's important for us to recognize, and you said something, but I guess it's important for us to recognize, how we hurt, and what is hurting us, and even speaking about the doctor situation, how do you go, and do you have a trusted person that you can go to as a friend or something and say, hey man, this is what I'm struggling with. Like, bro, I'm really struggling, and whether it's to the point where I'm struggling to the point where I don't think I can make it, or whether it's struggle to the point where, man, I'm having a caveman moment. I've literally gone into the cave, like put the do not disturb thing on the side and like, don't bother me, man. That's a scary place to be.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we're really good at compartmentalizing
100%.
those traumas
Well,
and anxieties and depressions and really kind of packing them under a mountain of other stuff, and then before we know it, they just burst to the top.
Indeed.
Like we were just saying, like your girlfriend say something like,
Yeah.
"You're acting like your daddy," and you just blow up.
Yeah.
And you didn't even think you had
My daddy.
And it's so valid right there. It's for someone else to
Generational trauma
recognize your
is
trauma.
something
Hold on,
that's
Khadijah,
really,
for 1 sec. Go ahead, brother.
It's so valid, like you just pointed out, for someone else to take and recognize your trauma, because often we have our circle that we take and confide in,
Yeah.
and people can recognize when you're a little bit off center, those types of things, or your judgment is a little bit off, or they know that you've been through a situation that may take and warrant some type of attention inside of the future. Often you take and you ask people, how are you doing? They'll respond back, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But confidently, sometimes you need to get with them and check on them and just go a little bit beneath the surface so that you can recognize those types of things.
100%. Like, brother, why are you so aggressive? I just say good morning. You say good morning. It's just, yeah, man. That raw, man, and understanding that, going beyond the surface. Like, man, how you doing? I'm okay. Like, nah, something's going on, man.
Well, we've been conditioned to say we're fine.
We're fine. I'm cool.
I'm good.
Yeah. And I had a friend of mine, man. In fact, his daughter graduated. And he was a little upset that she didn't really acknowledge him, but she acknowledged everybody to be him. And it bothered him. And I told him, I was like, man. I said, man. I said, it's all right. He said, no, it's not all right. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, no. He said, man, it's okay. I said, no, it's okay. I said, you upset? He said, yeah. I said, well, say you upset, bro. Don't swallow that, man. I'm your homie. Just let it out, man. He said, no, that's cool. I said, no, it's not, man. Say how you really feel. And he told me, he said, yeah, I'm hurt. I said, say you hurt. Don't swallow that stuff here, man. Sean, you agree?
Definitely. We have a huge issue with just holding stuff in, but I mean, not just on the trauma side, but I mean, it starts with just mentality. So just our everyday mindset, just everyday walk of life, what we're thinking constantly, what we're thinking about other people, what we think other people are thinking about us.
Yeah.
And just the everyday struggle, where it's from paying for gas or providing for your kids, getting your kids to school on time, just every little thing. It depends on your mental state. And I just think that's important.
Man, I agree. Khadijah, you were going to say something earlier?
well, I think generational trauma is something that often we don't really think about, breaking the curses. I mean, a lot of people, I've been given the example, you either learn from people's mistakes or you repeat their mistakes. And sometimes you're so deep in the trauma and the generational curse that you often repeat it, or, you have the desire to have more. The other thing I want to say is that, as we talk about programming in this society, it has imploded the ego. So everyone feels entitled, and that their opinion ought to be validated, and not necessarily with facts, like what necessarily is going on, but what they're feeling. And those feelings are often, that behavior is what is so pronounced and alarming to me, is that we feel entitled to a lot of the trauma that we go through. And some people are so embedded in that they can't come out of that. So, and again, it comes from like, again, generational curses, living with family members who have repeated the cycle, living with amongst just people that are in the same cycle that you are in. And how do you get out of that is really the real question, beyond just a psychologist, because you're spending money on a psychologist. A lot of people don't have the money to participate in those kind of services. And when they do, they find themselves halfway up under the water. So, I'm speaking real. Like, what is it that really makes a difference? And I really think people ought to set their ego to the backside, because it's strong out here in these days. And it's one of the reasons why we have so many people killing each other for no apparent reason, or it seems like over a pizza or $20, when really it's really deeply rooted. And that incident is the one incident that made it, explode. Absolutely. So I think it really turns out to checking the people around you, identifying what hurts you the most, and giving yourself a new environment, or trying to at least develop that.
Yeah. Look like somebody else just up there. Yeah. Yeah, man, that's true. And to go to what we were talking about earlier, it's that one spark. That one spark. And it's funny, I was watching something the other day. I was watching and I don't normally watch this, man, but I was watching hood fights. Okay. And I was watching from an angle of what triggered them what was that moment. And a lot of it was just saying something, and I think, and so I looked at it again, and I was like, no, it was a point that they said something that they didn't even say during this conversation, and I watched the whole thing. I said, so what they said, they didn't say it right in that moment. That had to be something that was a long time ago, but it triggered something at that moment, and that goes to those emotional triggers, man, and things that we see. And a lot of time, man, to be honest with you, what we consume, man, that really grabs us. What we watch, what we watch and what we see, man, that really grabs us.
That's why I said I don't really stay up with hip hop no more.
Yeah.
I have to concentrate on what I was putting in.
Yeah. I was talking about Lil Baby, the song "Emotional Scar." And I was listening to that the other day, and it brought forth kind of this conversation, but a lot of other things. But when I heard it, I was like, okay, all right, maybe that's what it is. But yeah, and it's emotionally scarred, man. We are emotionally scarred, and we definitely have to. There's some trauma and some healing that needs to take place, and there's the conversation that needs to go forth, and I think that's what we have to have. And in a few weeks we're gonna talk about trauma bonds. Man, that's another thing. Bonding to the trauma, man. For folks that hurt you bonding to that. So that's a heavy topic as well. Looks like we got Mr. Sparks joining us. How you doing, sir? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Mr. Jackson?
Roger
Good to be
Sparks.
with you all today.
Man, we are doing well. Mr. Roger Sparks, go ahead and introduce yourself, everybody, and we'll continue this conversation.
All right, my name is Roderick Sparks. I serve on the Board of Education for the Lee Summit School District, and I am here to have this conversation on mental health.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Mr. Sparks, what we were talking about, man, just emotionally scarred, man, and a lot of times there's certain things that continue to kind of buffet us, and they kind of keep rubbing us the wrong way. But what they're rubbing is a scar a wound that we had that's just been covered up. And when the conversation really is, emotionally scarred. Man, can you speak to that?
I think that this is a real important conversation. Reason being is so many kids, and I'm going to speak from the student aspect of it. They come to school and they come from multiple walks of life, and there's trauma that has taken place that, frankly, adults, we tend to not acknowledge that comes with our kids. And so I think, the first start of acknowledging the fact that there is trauma that exists, and then also being able to play a role of how to help students to be able to deal with trauma and be able to cope with it, to be able to have coping mechanisms in place. And that starts with, number one, acknowledging it, but then two, being able to get them the resources that's necessary. And so that's why it's important that when you look at district budgets, when you look at different professional staffing that's within our school districts, that they're in place so that our kids are actually getting the help that's needed. But then also giving resources to families, because a lot of times families don't know how to deal with these things. And then I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that for African-American families, therapy and counseling is something that we tend to not want it to think that we need or our children need. But I'm here to say that therapy is good. Being able to utilize those professional services of individuals that have received that proper training to be able to identify the different traumas that our students have received, and then also how to be able to basically deal with life with those traumas that come along with just growing up.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that. Yeah, man. In school, that's from school. So, how early should we be having that conversation? Or should we be noticing this? Anybody to kind of to chime in, but how early should we be having that conversation with our loved one, even our kids, but having a conversation, are you okay? Or just like you said earlier, just noticing certain things, man. But don't just say I'm okay and just brush it off. Really dig into that, man, because that's something that really needs to be kind of dug into. That you can't gloss over that.
Yeah, I think as soon as they can, verbalize, as soon as they can understand and communicate with you, you need to be like, why are you acting like, why are you crying right now?
Yeah.
Why do you feel that? Why are you sad? Try to get them to acknowledge their emotions and their feelings.
Sure.
So later on in life, when these things happen, they can ask themselves, why am I sad? Why am I angry?
Yeah.
So they don't end up pulling out a gun and shooting somebody. And then 20 years later, realize, oh, it was that's why I did that stupid thing that cost me my freedom.
Yeah.
Right. And it, like you said, just we have to learn how to address the problem as soon as it happens. We have a tendency of, so it's such and such did this, I'm gonna let them cool off.
Yeah.
No, you need to address the problem when it happens, because when you address it when it happens, you make them realize, okay, one, that was not okay. Two, I work in the school system as well, so I always tell the children it's okay to feel mad. It's okay to be mad, be upset, but the important thing is what do you do after that? How do you cope with that? How do we get past mad? I'm not knocking you for being mad, but at the end of the day, when you get mad, you can't punch a hole in the wall. When you get mad, you can't decide that you're going to put your hands on someone or go pick up something and throw or do what's the actions after you get mad?
Man, that's good that you said, because I'll let you say, just saying, but that's interesting you said that, and it made me think about, what is righteous anger? How can you be angry and how can you let that out? You can be upset and be mad, but like you said, don't punch a wall. So if I'm pissed off, how do I let that out? What if I don't want to talk to anybody? What if I'm just that angry to where I don't know what to do? What if I don't want to talk to anybody? How does that come out collectively? Do I go to the gym and punch a bag? Do I jump on a bike and ride my bike, man? How does that,
I mean, I'm not saying there's not a time for violence. I'm saying there's a line in the sand, and after a certain point, it's like you might have to put your hands up. But knowing where that line
but
is.
not all the time.
Not all the. No, that's the thing. These are extreme situations.
Sure.
Not somebody cuts you off in traffic.
That happened this morning. Go ahead.
That's one of my triggers right there.
Man.
I be yelling up. If somebody ever put a microphone in my car, I lose my job probably.
I drive a delivery truck, and I'm up at 12 o'clock at night in the morning. So, in fact, let me say this. In fact, on I-35 this morning, there was a shootout. There was a rolling road rage on I-35 at 12 o'clock this morning where a 51-year-old man got shot, had to go to the hospital just because they got ticked off at each other and somebody was riding up and shot him and he had to go to the hospital. That's anger. That's what I'm saying. Like, does it get to the point where, okay, you're at the stoplight and light turns green and he goes, then you go, then he goes, then you go, and then he jumps in front, don't use his blinker, and you're like, oh, he didn't use his blinker.
He's trying to kill me.
You know, then you like, oh, then he looks all ratchet. Yeah, he looked at me. And then
That's exactly.
he looked at me, you know, because you want to get up, you don't want to look over. Like, you know, what does it get to the point where, you know, all right, you know what? I ain't gonna let that bother me. That don't even worry about it because I have to, man. You know, I've had people get in front of me and slam on their brakes, you know, and it's frustrating, but you know, you have to let that stuff out, man. You just, you know, get over it. Khadijah, you about to say something earlier?
Yep, I was. and it has to do with how young do you start, and absolutely what do you teach them.
Yeah.
Everything that comes into life, you know, young babies have to be taught. And one of the things that is really a good thing to teach children right off the bat is problem solving. How to solve your problems, have a solution to your issues. And if you don't have a solution, go find one that's morally compassed and right, you know. So it starts with one, educating your kids to problem solve. And then secondly, the one issue that I really have a problem with is coddling. And that is coddling your kids, giving them what they want. And a lot of times you never address the issue. And again, it goes back to entitlement. A lot of children nowadays feel entitled, but are also suffering from their issues because no one had the time to take the art of communication. It also goes back to, again, generational curses. If you as an adult don't know how to problem solve and get through the issues that you have, then there's no way you're going to teach a child how to do that. So start with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, take 10 minutes and stop before you yell, holler, scream, or take the other person's side first. Understand what your child is going through first. And if it's not your child, whatever child is close to you, because we know that a lot of these children nowadays are not being raised by their parents.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Listen, that's learned behavior. You know, you know, you see so much growing up, you know, this is how they handle frustration. This is how they handle a conversation. This is how they handle the argument. This is how they handle, you know, just all that stuff. This is, you know, this is how they handle social media. You know, you're seeing, you know, people doing whatever on social media and you think that's normal, you know, and how does a little kid see that and process? And we know that, you know, kids are getting cell phones of what, Roger, what, 9? What do you think, man? 8, 9 years old? What would you say? Cell phones.
Man, you got 5-year-olds walking around with cell phones.
With an iPhone 13 Plus Max.
And a Snapchat account.
Taking TikToks. Yeah, man.
I can't tell you how many, because I'm at that age. I'm 34, so I'm at that age where, like, there are people who are, like, having kids in high school, and those kids are, like, going to, you know, homecoming now. So it's like, I can't tell you how many of them was like, man, I caught my daughter being fast on her phone. I'm like, it's more available now. Like, you still have to sneak out of the house and be fast. Now it's just like, you be fast from your own room.
Man,
like,
we had beepers. You couldn't see nothing on the beeper, but all you see was the numbers on the pager.
I'm gonna call you.
911, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it is, you know, and I know that, and I guess Roger can speak to this as well if he wants, but I know a lot of times, man, even just the whole part of bullying and the emotional trauma that, man, goes along with that. And I know a lot of times, you know, guys with girl and boys with girl, you know, they're like each other, they're intimate, they share pictures. Now pictures of the girl are on his phone and the picture go viral, you know, and now girl goes to a lot of different, I mean, I think that happened not too long ago somewhere else, but now everybody's seeing her, you know what I'm saying? And that right there is traumatic for her. She can't live that down, you know, and oftentimes her outlet may be just to end it all.
Can we take a quick poll here? Because I kind of think that in the black community, bullying was just something so normal. People don't really even notice, like, oh, yeah, I was bullied. I was talked badly about, because they used to get on me light skin, big ears, big teeth.
You weren't part of the chocolate crew. You know? Back then it was blonde and chocolate, and I don't know what.
I'll tell you, light skin was not in when I was, nobody was checking for the old light skin guy.
Yellow fellas, man. But no, but Roger, man, how does that work, man? That poll as far as the, you know, from that angle, man. Bullying situation.
Hey,
We lost you.
it is. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Am I
Yeah,
back?
yeah. Yep.
Okay. Um, you know what? Bullying is something that happens more than um, it should.
Mm-hmm.
Just with, I mean, not just in our district, but I think everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the other panelists stated, it happened when we was growing up. But to Khadijah's point, that problem solving is major.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to make sure that we're equipping our students on how to be able to deal with conflict resolutions,
Yeah.
how to be able to deal with problem solving, how to be able to work things out, because this world isn't an easy world to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beneficial for them at a very young age to learn how to deal with differences, how to deal with conflict, deal with the feeling of, I don't like this situation. So now how do I fix this situation?
Yeah.
Is I don't like the situation that I'm in. So then I start thinking about committing suicide,
Yeah.
or do I think about deciding taking someone else's life? Or do I just remove myself from those situations in a way to where I can deal with it? So I think that problem solving is major. I think being able to have conversations, talk. We have to be able to provide spaces. Our young people love to talk,
Yeah.
but so many times, even as adults, and I can even say personally, even with my own kids, sometimes we do a lot of talking at our children when it's important that we provide an environment and a space for them to be able to express their thoughts and opinions, so that they know that they're being heard and not just letting them talk, but we're actually hearing what they
Yeah.
have to say, and then being able to work through different situations and challenges that they may have. For me, my parents worked 2 jobs, and so there was not much of mom and dad that was there to be able to say, hey, these kids said this about me today. How do I handle this? Versus it just became a habit of saying, you know what, I'm going to bottle all of this anger up. And then one day it's just going to be the wrong person that
Yeah.
says the wrong
Yeah.
thing to me. And then now here I'm about to blow up. And then you have administrators wondering, why is there a fight? Well, because these kids have not had an outlet on
Yeah.
how to deal with the pressures of life. And so then you wonder why our kids then either start causing pain on other individuals because they're in a hurt situation, or not knowing how to conversate and have conversations. So then when they get into the situation where now they're choosing to throw up their fists, and to use other mechanisms to express their feelings. And so for me, what I try to advocate for is it's okay for young people to have disagreements and things of that nature, but we also have to set a culture of restorative practices so that we don't put in place to where kids are just being disciplined by being suspended or things of that nature, but also starting the conversations on how do we allow a kid back to the fold once decisions and mistakes are made, because they might have made a misstep in their way of dealing with a particular situation.
Yeah, man, that's good. Yeah, how to what I got out of that was really just how to have that conversation, but also how to not only have the conversation, listen to them, but bring them back into the fold. That's heavy, man. That's true. And what I had to tell, I have some girls and I got sons, like boys and girls. What I have to tell my girls that everybody's not your friend, because they were like, oh, she just don't want to talk to me. See, that's okay for her not to be your friend. Everybody don't rock with everybody, man. Maybe you like what she's wearing or whatever the case, but it's okay for her not to be your friend. Find your own tribe, find your own friends, find your own people, and that's what you gotta do. You're putting more pressure on you than needs to be there. You know what I'm saying? So, they're personal ways. But one thing that really got me was when I was even during COVID, man. I was leaving to go to work, and I went to my girl's room. I go in there and make sure the covers or whatever and all that. But I kept hearing something when I walked in their bedroom, man, and I got up close and they were grinding their teeth, and I was like, and I kept hearing something grinding, and I kind of looked at it and I said, well, what is that from? Well, it's through stress. and that stress becomes internalized, and it shows up when your body's resting, your mind is still going, and so they're grinding their teeth. So I was kind of messing with their mouth, kind of loosening their jaw or whatever. But and I was kind of reading about dentists. Well, during COVID, dentists said they've noticed that a lot of people coming in with their teeth kind of been filed down because they've been grinding their teeth so much during their resting time. And I said, man, I got to talk about that. But man, that kind of shook me for a minute, man. I didn't know how to handle that. As a father, I'm like, because I know it's on their mind. You can go to school, you can't go to school. You're virtual, you're in-house, your laptop, you're not a laptop. You're like, God. But so we had to work through that thing, man, and to have that conversation to say, hey, we're gonna make it. What else can you do? So, and somebody else can jump in on on that subject, man. How you made it through.
Yeah, I was a teeth grinder. I actually ended up breaking off my 2 back teeth because my wisdom teeth grew in crooked, so it was like a little jagged point.
Yeah.
So when I would grind my teeth, it was like slowly rubbing away, and then finally they just shattered. Sheesh. Yeah, it's real out here, and I didn't understand. Like that was just work.
Yeah.
Weighing heavy on me, relationship issues weighing heavy on, family issues weighing heavy on me, and then they just manifest subconsciously through that act.
While you're resting. So you ain't really resting. You still grind.
Yeah.
So just how about yourself? Just going through things, man. How did you make through things, and how are you making it through things that you've gone through?
All right, couple of things. Since you all mentioned like the inability to rest, those types of things, it's powerful. The last thing that we think about at night before we go to bed, and also what we wake up thinking about. So if you go to bed about something that was negative that happened, take some time. You're off track. You want to be able to empower yourself to get off to a fresh start that very next day. Yeah. So I implore you to take and think about something positive. So that's one. Yeah. That is being able to frame your own mindset. Yeah. Second, what I do is, again, I have a circle of people that I really, really trust. Yeah. And I'm glad that they love me because they tell me when I'm wrong and they'll also tell me when I'm right. Yeah. So that helps you stay balanced as an individual. Absolutely. Because whether you know it or not, we're social human beings. Yeah. We speak things into existence. And if you're of a positive mindset, a growth type of mindset, and if you want to make a difference, it's important that you have that circle and you take and entrust and you build with one another. Yeah. So that's going to help you with your walk through life, because life is going to be eventful. Bad things are going to happen, whether it's to you or someone around you. But at the same time, you can always turn negatives into positives. Yeah. Stuff may not be as bad as it seems. Yeah. I don't know if the loss may be a loved one, a job, all of those types of things. But, have that restorative type of mindset, and also people around you that can restore, because, another job's gonna show up. If you're a hardworking individual, someone's gonna come beating down your door. Yeah. If it's a material thing, you got it once, you'll always get it back again. Yeah. So always have hope. Yeah. And
that's dope. That's good. That's
Same
good.
thing with relationships. Another one will come along too.
Yeah. Yeah. I go down to the Leia Center, man. Gentleman I know owns the Leia Center downtown. And when you go in, there's like a holistic place, and you go in there, and when you go down there, if you go off to the left, there's a big old mirror, and this big old mirror's got a lot of different Post-it notes, and those are affirmations. And it's funny because you go up to the mirror and all you see is all of these different, I am special, I am loved, I am beautiful, I am liked, I love, I'm beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And you look at that, and while you're looking in the mirror, you're looking at yourself, but you're actually seeing these things. And I talked to Joe that owns it, him and his wife Latoya, and I said, man, that's dope, man. You can walk in there, and as soon as you go over there, you see this big old mirror that says, I am loved, I am great, I am beautiful, I am, you know what I'm saying? So that's the Khadijah, what do you think about positive affirmations today? Or Sean, either one of y'all?
Yeah, well, you might have telepathy, because, if you would have asked me what I do, and I would tell you that I affirm myself each and every day. Mm-hmm. And I affirm myself to walk in power. You know, a lot of people, and I have at one point searched for someone to identify the beauty in me. It wasn't until I started to affirm in myself that I began to acknowledge who I truly was, acknowledge the true beauty within myself, and acknowledge the power within myself. And then after affirming myself, you know, I etched in my heart the habits that would make me move in those affirmations. So just, you know, oftentimes when we go through trauma or we go through a bad experience, we don't realize that we have control over our mind and we have a power to make certain decisions. We can choose how we walk down that road. We can walk down it in positivity and a light that says that, you know, there's hope and there's a future, or we can choose to just be depressed, take all of the bad and take that into our soul and live with that type of depression and negativity. And I just tell people, empower yourself. One, start with just your habits so that you can change the way you think and the way you perceive things, because we all have a perception of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for you or it's the right thing to do, and it's going to make you live a long, healthy life or have peace. A lot of people say happiness, but I think happiness is actually making things happen. I think what really people desire is a peace of mind, and you have to choose your battles. That's the other thing, is everything is not worth fighting. Everything is not a battle. Oftentimes, I just got off the phone with someone who I just wanted them to explain a situation to me. And instead of trying to explain the situation to me, the individual thought it was necessary to be right in the conversation. So again, it's our perception, how we live our life and how we live in that trauma that is internalized, but reflects outward to other people. And so I just try to reflect that light as much as I can. Affirm yourself. There's this thing of belief. I don't have a belief. I have a knowing and a dwelling with God. And then I use that power from that dwelling to go make things happen. And I think that's the way people should look at it. And then that gives you a peace of mind. You can choose. You have a choice.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
You guys are walking
Sean,
right up my alley.
Yeah, that's I was about to shoot it to you. Sean, you're melanated investments, so I mean, you know that there has to be a mind shift as far as, you know, melanated investments and just the whole thing. That, go ahead and speak to all that, bro.
For sure. So, like I said, you guys are right up my alley with just goal setting and mindset in general. So, I'm a firm believer that when you speak what you see, you will see what you said. So, it's just the whole point of it there. And just, it's all about mindset, man. Like, poor thinking habits keep most people poor. I posted this on Facebook the other day, and I don't usually post a lot, but I posted that poor thinking habits keep most people poor, not poor work habits. And most people work hard, but they don't think hard. So we have to learn how to change those habits and change those mindset. And like I said, you know, all about speaking positive to yourself, speaking positive to your brothers and sisters, but not just that, but taking the action after that. I mean, it's all right to think something, but you have to take the action after that.
Yeah, no, that's dope, man. The power of life and death's in the tongue. You know what I'm saying? You said,
Sure.
you said to manifest. You said enough, and it will become who you are. And I heard somebody say it's almost like creating a whole nother identity. You said so much, the old you becomes the old you. You know what I'm saying? And you say it so much, you begin to believe that stuff, man. And when you believe it, you begin to walk in and manifest it, and you begin to see that walk out in your life. Sparks, you agree with that?
Hey, I absolutely agree. There's nothing else to say. I think they covered that, and so you don't have to add to when it's already there. And
There you
so
go.
there's nothing to add other than just knowing that self-care is important.
Self-care.
Being able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And so often, you know, we'll focus on others.
Yeah.
But you know, there's times where you got to focus on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, there's a song, sometimes you got to encourage yourself.
Yeah.
And that's true. Sometimes you got to take the time to truly focus on yourself to make sure that you're well before you can try to take care of somebody else.
100%. 100%. How about you, Banks, man? What you think, bro?
Yeah, I did. They all have
summed it up,
valid
huh?
points. Yeah, but once you get to you, and
Yeah.
nah, that's true. I think we all just need to take a step back
100%.
and really reevaluate what
Yeah.
we were taught, how we deal with our issues, what part of that was old school parenting.
What we were taught and what we're learning now.
Yeah, I've had to unlearn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, toxic masculinity, homophobia, hyper violence, just being able to smack a guy at the drop of a hat because he's looking at you. Like, that's all stuff that has no place in a professional setting.
Right.
So it's like, what is really going to benefit me in the long run? What's going to be traits that people say, oh, that's somebody I need to, check with in regards to something positive in my life, as opposed to that person I need to stay away from.
Yeah.
And we need to normalize cutting people off, whether it be family, toxic relationship, work.
Yeah.
If those things are manifest, like you said about your kid grinding the teeth, like those things manifest in other physical
100%.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah, they do, and you look at it and you see certain things, and I think that's the whole thing, is really noticing it. I mean, I think that's what really going back to is really just noticing, how to recognize those things, and when we do need help, and then when we do need the help, reach out to the help. And I wish I had some numbers for the help, but I don't have the help right now. So just tune in again. We'll get get the numbers for you for the help. But get the help that you need, and continue to tune in to Street Therapy, man. And we'll definitely I got therapists that are coming on and other folks that are counselors that you can tap into and definitely get the help that you need, because it's important, especially now the holidays are coming, and we look at certain things as people lose loved ones, man, and those loved ones aren't there for the holidays. I lost my mother a couple of years ago, man, and it still bugs me around the holidays. My wife always says, all right, you're starting to act a little odd, man. And you don't think that you are, but you are, man. You think I'm good, but then you kind of sit down like, maybe I am tripping a little bit, But hurt hurts.
Mm-hmm. And it could be triggers as well, because if there's a person that makes a certain thing, like mom could make the best peach cobbler.
Yes.
So when Thanksgiving comes around, you're gonna want that peach cobbler, and no one else can, come close to that.
Yeah. One thing my mother she gave me a Father's Day card, man, but she had cancer. She got so sick to the point where she couldn't even come and bring me the card. So I went over to her house, and the card was still sitting on the table. She went and bought it, but her intents, and she didn't even know. My mother would sign it, and she would put the date and whatever the case, but she didn't even sign it. I said, this is getting bad, man. Khadijah, you're saying something?
I think you should have a part 2 and really talk about addiction and drugs and how these drugs are poured into our community. I don't know, a lot of people on here may be generational X, but if you're generational X, you absolutely know what the crack epidemic looked like. Mm-hmm. and you saw it clearly. If you were a classmate of mine, you knew what PCP looked like. You know what I mean? And you saw people in your community on it. You also seen that people were drugged and became mentally out of their minds. These are people's mothers, people who had livelihoods. At some point, I think you should have a conversation about that, because a lot of trauma stem from that era. I mean, it continues on. Some of your biggest drug lords were a part of crack epidemic. Cocaine was one thing, but crack was a whole nother beast.
I agree. I reached out to some police officers, sheriffs, and things like that to have them on the show, and some of them are going through like litigation and stuff, so they really can't do a lot of public stuff, whatever. But definitely have them on. I was not on the panel, but conversation some time ago, just talking about fentanyl. Fentanyl is like, that's flooding in at least some of in other areas. But the opioid, and a lot of that stuff is really kind of digging into our communities. Then it was a crack, now it's the opioids, whatever, But that's a whole nother conversation to have, man. Just the whole drug culture And I wouldn't, my man Ice Cube say, he said, we ain't flying that stuff in here. How's it getting to the hood? We ain't getting it in here, man. We can't even fly out of the city, let alone bring it into the city.
I think coping mechanisms.
It's a coping.
I mean, not just drugs,
man.
sex. I just saw a study that had a statistic about the correlation between drug addiction and sex workers.
That's a big deal. That's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother hour plus. So listen, man, we're gonna wrap this up. We got about 3 minutes into the studio, into the session here, the conversation, and we can have a part 2 whenever you guys are willing to come back and just have this conversation. Like I said, I like to have this conversation throughout the holidays, and it's my goal really to get this and put it out as far as I can, as much as I can, and rebroadcast, whatever the case, because for those people, at 2:00 in the morning, that feel like what, they may hear Khadijah, they may hear you, they may hear one of us say, get help, and you would never know that one moment they be like, what, I need to get help. Like right now, I'm really at my wit's end. So get help, man. Get the help that you need. There are definitely a lot of suicide hotlines. There's, I think it was 811 or something, but a lot of different counseling sessions. Find the right counselor. They definitely can make a big difference in your life. They can help or hurt you, to be honest with you. But find the right counselor. Find that person that fits with you. And if the person looks like you, then they look like you. But if you find a counselor that don't look like you, that are really helping you, man, listen, get the help that you need. Trust me, it is crucial to not only your life, man, your family's life.
Yeah,
what affects you affects everybody else.
We got to deal with you.
we gotta, yeah. What he said, we do. We have to deal with you. But if you're gone, man, people are gonna miss you. Your life affects everybody else's life around you. So, like I said, we got a couple minutes. Somebody say maybe a word or two, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
This episode has been brought to you by BetterHelp. For those who can't get out the house to find a therapist.
I'll just say, never be afraid to be vulnerable and seeking help, because if something is wrong, help can come from any type of a source. Always value the words of other people. You could take away good knowledge from whether it's a alcoholic, whether it's a prostitute, or anyone like that, because they might not want you to live the way that they live, but by that same token, they may be able to offer advice, because everyone got to where they're at by some various types of means, and everybody wants to do well and live a good life.
Something happened somewhere.
That's the point.
Yeah. As Cornel West would say, I am who I am because somebody loved me.
Yeah, indeed. Brother Sean, you want to say something to wrap this up, bro?
Yeah, sure. Just fight your thinking with positive words until they both line up.
There you go. Brother Sparks, sorry.
I'm just going to say values.
Yeah.
Everyone have values, and I think that it's important that you make sure that you stick to your values and the values that you care about.
Indeed. Last but not least, Khadijah, leave us with one of your affirmations, if you can say that, to leave us with that on that note.
I am powerful.
Come on.
Power and love are the strongest weapons on earth. And when you use them in combination, then you have all the rationale that you typically need.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better. All right, listen, this has been another episode of Street Therapy KC. I'm your man, Chris Jackson, man. Peace. God bless y'all. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other, man. And we're going to get through this thing, man. We're just going to keep digging at it. Take care, man. God bless, man. We love y'all. Peace.
Thank you.
Like Prince said, we gather here to get through this thing called life.
Life,
That
brother.
hour flew by.